up longer than you think. And then also, whatever liquids you use with the yeast should never be warmer than the kind of like baby bath water or baby formula, because that's the actual perfect temperature. About 100 to 110 degrees is the perfect temperature for getting yeast to multiply, to wake up and multiply. And so your liquid should never be any hotter than that. I think that's where some people run into trouble with yeast. The second thing is the process of kneading can be difficult for a lot of people. That's why I'm really glad, actually. I wasn't at first, but I'm really glad that people are getting stand mixers with a dough hook. Because if that's the way you're going to get bread into your house, you don't want to knead by hand, but that's going to get fresh homemade bread into your house. God bless you. Go ahead and use that dough hook. I was fortunate that I learned my kneading technique when I was 11. So I've been kneading a very long time. But if that's something that's difficult, then I say people, yeah, absolutely, go ahead and use the stand mixer. I'm really glad, though, too, that you can find so many great videos on YouTube and other places where you can learn how to knead. There's different techniques for it, and you'll see a lot of them that are available on the internet or online classes. And I think that's helped a lot of people with being comfortable with baking. I produced a couple of those kind of videos myself that are on my website, and I have a YouTube channel, and that has helped people a lot to learn how to knead or shape dough or know when it's risen sufficiently, all those sorts of things. I think the things that we used to learn at our mother's side or grandmother's side, it skipped a couple generations, and now we're learning it off the internet. But thanks be to God, let's preserve that knowledge.
We're talking to you about the Thursday Night Pizza book, and it's the second edition. So my question is what's new about this edition from the first edition? What have you added?
I've added some recipes or pizza variations on pizza that I hadn't before, because I started doing big pizza parties. I started doing fundraiser pizza parties that were like gourmet. So I was making things like velouté sauce with chicken and broccoli, or I was doing a sherry cream sauce with ham and shallots, and then you'd put grapes and drizzle it with honey, the things that were out of the ordinary. So I wanted to share a lot of those kinds of recipes. But then also the popularity of backyard ovens made me realize that there's a whole group of people out there who want to start baking and baking better. And they might need some guidance about the dough, because the dough that you use in your oven at home is probably going to be different than the one that you use in your backyard oven.
Explain that.
Yeah, we could do a whole show.
Yeah, we could do a whole show on dough because of the variations that are out there. But most people, when they make dough, or when they used to make bread at home, they were making it in their oven. The oven only goes up to 500 degrees at max. And you use a pizza stone, okay, to make really good pizza. For that kind of dough, you could do an American-style dough, which American-style dough usually has a little milk in it, or sometimes a lot of milk in it, and a little more sugar and oil, and in addition to the flour and the yeast and salt. And that tastes a little more like bread and browns in the oven at that 500 degrees perfectly, crisps up, all those kinds of things. A lot of people who are doing backyard pizza ovens, either wood-fired or with chips or pellets or propane, might happen to be propane, that oven might go up to 700, 800, 900 degrees.
Wow.
If you use a milk-based dough, that's going to burn, or it's going to be dark on the outside and not done in the middle. And you won't get as good of a result. And that's difficult for people. And they get mad. They spend hundreds of dollars on this thing. They can't get it to work. It's really a matter of the dough. Italian pizza dough, such as they do in those hot ovens, is flour, water, yeast, and salt. That's it. And it's usually a higher hydration. It's wetter than the dough that you might make for your home oven. Okay. And so those make a big difference when you're putting in the oven. It won't brown as fast because there's no milk, there's no sugar. And then also because it's a little wetter, it can stand that high heat. Okay. Now, a lot of Neapolitan dough recipes, you make them with a fantastically small amount of yeast, sometimes as little as a half a teaspoon of yeast, rather than basically a scant tablespoon in a package normally. So you might only use like a half a teaspoon or a teaspoon of yeast, and then sometimes it might rise for 3 days in the refrigerator before you use it. And that gives a certain quality to the dough that is perfect for that wood-fired oven or pellet or propane oven in your backyard at those higher temperatures. And so I wanted to have a whole section just on backyard ovens and what they were like. And there's tabletop models, there's big models, there's small ones. There's portable ones. I just thought people needed some kind of primer to be able to understand that a little better. I've had a lot of people contact me and say, all along, I didn't know the problem was the dough, and now it's going great. And so many people, including my own cousins, by the way, who said, I couldn't figure out what was wrong. I said, oh, it's just a dough problem. So I sent him my recipe.
We have a propane pizza oven in our backyard. Really
Okay.
nice. We love it. Everybody makes their own little pizza, so it's a wonderful time for the family to get together. But we have struggled with the dough, and we found that, I hate to say this, you may hang up on us, but we went out and bought store-bought, already made dough, and
Okay.
it just doesn't work right for us.
There are lots of people who live near really good pizzerias that's a good option for you, because it must be admitted that it's a certain amount of work to get ready to make pizza. You got to be intentional and plan. You have several days around it, really. And so I understand why people would go ahead and get something made commercially or that's provided by a local pizzeria.
We tried doing it ourselves, and we haven't given up on it. We keep trying, but we always have that store-bought standing by, so we can at least have a few pizzas. Yeah.
You know what? I used to be really snobbish about this stuff. I used to be really snobbish about bread machines. Those first came out just before I started my TV show. Those had just started to kind of the big rise in popularity right about that. And I was an abomination unto the Lord. It's terrible. And because I was believing that the important thing was get your hands in the dough. Now, from like a personal therapeutic sense, absolutely. Putting your hands in the dough, kneading, the rhythm of it, the patience of it, those are all good for our soul. But then I was told by one of my sponsors, hey, 50% of our income comes from bread machines. Don't be bad mouthing them on camera. I'm like, okay, duly noted. But then after I started doing events and book signings and all that kind of stuff, people were coming up to me and saying, hey, I have arthritis, and I'm so glad that you have a bread machine version of your bread machine, because I can't make bread. Or I have a child with special needs, got special dietary needs. I'm a single mom with 2 kids. Being able to just turn the machine on and walk away, no, I can feed my kid healthy bread that I can't buy at the store. I'm like, okay, I need to back off on the negativity. If that's, like I said, if that's how you can get decent bread in your house, God bless you. Go ahead and go there.
And that's great to hear you say that, because a lot of people would just stand firm and I'm not going to change my stance on this. It's this way or the highway. And I know something that you've talked about in your book, and I don't want to get into this ahead of time, but you mentioned that the best pizza is the one that you're making right now. And there's no sense in saying that Chicago style's better, New York better, St. Louis better, or whatever pizza. It's the one you're making right now is the best pizza.
I hate pizza snobs. Oh, they drive me crazy. They're like people who just let it as if somehow this is a hill to die on. Like, it's not real pizza because you can't fold it in half. That's some New York guy, or that deep dish is the only way to go, or whatever. I have had all of those kinds of pizzas, and I love all of them. I've had some pizzas in a gas station that were pretty darn good, surprisingly. You get a slice on the way. That might be just because hunger is the best sauce, but there's no reason for people to be snobbish about it or make somebody else feel bad about the way they do it, or especially with regard to, it must be this kind of flour or whatever. Yeah, the flour can make a big difference. Certainly, a flour with higher protein, I think, is always the way to go, because the protein gives the dough better structure, and you get that kind of nice poofy crust. And if you want those big kind of classic holes that you see in an artisan crust, yeah, that's better with a high protein bread like bread flour. You're better off using that sort of thing. But I made all-purpose flour pizzas for a decade before I ever wrote my first cookbook, and they all turned out great. I've had, so many people tell me this is the best pizza I've ever had in my life, and they say the same thing when they do it at home. They say we've never had better pizza than the stuff we make by ourselves. So, yeah, it's more a matter of the freshness of it and the freshness of the ingredients, and I think the pleasure of doing it yourself can certainly add to the taste. A friend of mine just recently had a party at his house, and one of the things that people find difficult in a backyard pizza oven is having to spin the pizza. Do you struggle with that at all? And like, you have to spin it in the back of the oven, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, we do. We slide it in and then we try to flick our wrist a little bit to get it to move.
Because the reason people don't realize when they buy this the oven, they may not be aware of this. There's the heat source is only on one place, either the front or the side or the back of the side, depending upon the model or the size of it. And if you leave it without rotating it, then it will burn on one side, and the other side will still be raw. So it has to be rotated within the oven itself. And one of the difficulties with that for a lot of people is learning to manipulate the dough with a peel in such a fashion that you don't push it into the ashes in a regular fashion so that it doesn't burn. It cooks evenly. And I actually developed a tool for this. There's pictures of it in the cookbook where I took a pair of long-handled barbecue forks, the kind with two tines, and I simply bent the ends of them. And you can actually buy these online. I mean, they make them, but it's just as easy to get, go to a thrift shop and buy them for $1.99. They don't have to match. And then you bend the ends, and then you use it to grip the sides of the pizza and spin it right there on top of the stone. And so you have complete control, and you can spin it as slow or as fast as you want and move it around very easily. And it kind of spins in a circle as opposed to you're trying to push it around with a peel.
Now, we're always worried about the stone being clean enough so that it's slick enough to turn that. Yeah.
And you certainly want to brush off your pizza stone after each pizza because that cornmeal starts to burn. If you put cornmeal or semolina down, that starts to burn. It can adversely affect the flavor. Although I have to say, I like a little char on a pizza when it's out of one of those ovens. I think I want to go with it. I don't want to be eating a charcoal brick, but I do a little bit of extra brown. Even when I do my pizzas at home, I don't like it when there's no color on the mozzarella. I want a little dark tip there just for the sake of it. And I can crust better that when it's like that too. What I'm really looking forward, I have to say, now that we're talking about it, what I'm really looking forward to, is months away. I can't wait until there's garden tomatoes again.
Oh, yes.
A raw. We use the little ones. We use those little bitty tomatoes. Do you use a bigger tomato?
You know what? Those cherry tomatoes, even in the wintertime, those aren't bad. And I have used those to make a bruschetta topping before that is really good. And even in the wintertime, okay? Those little cherry tomatoes that come out, those aren't bad, even in the winter. But there's a pizza I make, it's called the 4-cheese tomato top. The original Italian is quattro formaggi con pomodoro. But you lay down a mixture of cheese, 4 different cheeses, and some herbs, and 1 beaten egg mixed in with it, tossed in lightly. And you lay that down on your crust, and then just slices of raw tomatoes that have been drained slightly. And then put that in the oven. No sauce, nothing else on top. Just leave the tomatoes right there. And when that comes out, it is a revel. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's one of the most popular pizzas in my books is that people tell me they love making it when they get the garden tomatoes in, especially if you have the heirloom tomatoes and they're different colors. It makes it real colorful pizza as well. That's probably my favorite actually.
I'm having to wipe my mouth because I'm drooling as you're talking about this.
I know it's making us very hungry. I know we've had pizzas around our house forever, but when we got that pizza oven out on the back porch, and our family comes around and we have all the different toppings and everything, we have a blast. It's just a great time.
Once you get the dough rolled out, you can get your 6-year-old involved. And so, everybody can be a part of putting things on their pizza. And that's a great delight for everybody. It's so entertaining. Now, part of it for me is trying to teach people how to toss the dough. Every family should videotape that. Should get their phones out when somebody's trying to learn to toss the dough because there's always a I Love Lucy moment.
We haven't done the larger pizzas yet. We do the smaller ones. Everybody makes it and they share with everyone. We have not really ventured into a larger pizza, medium-sized pizza.
A lot of the backyard pizza ovens out there won't do much more than a 12-incher. And so that's still pretty close to personal pan size, our personal size. And the 12 is about the limit. There's some larger ones that'll do a 16. They're a lot more expensive, and once they're on your patio, they are there. There's no moving them around. I kind of like the fact the one that I have is portable, and so I can take it to a buddy's garage. I have a friend who has one of those big green egg And it
Yes.
can be used for one of those, and he uses that to make pizza. And so we actually have a plan to do that once it warms up a little bit. His garage. I'm going to bring mine over, and he's going to fire up his, and we're gonna do pizza. He has a large family, large extended family, so this will be quite the party, I think. But I like that sort of thing, bringing people together and experimenting is just a great way to make a meal more than just refueling.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis in Tune. We're talking to Father Dominic Garamoni about his updated book, the second edition, Thursday Night Pizza. And Father Don, one of the things I really appreciate about this book, people are just going to think, well, it's just pizza. The contents are pizza basics, crusts and sauces, appetizers, pizzas, and desserts. There's also a red sauce, white sauce, no sauce. And plus you have notes in here on each pizza that you talk about or each appetizer. You say, I'll be perfectly honest here. The reason I serve this pizza to the brethren is so that I can eat the leftover topping with crostini as I work. I love that honesty. I love that honesty.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. That's the thing is that when you throw a pizza party, you want to have a little something for people to nosh on ahead of time, and you want something a little sweet. I was at a buddy's house, and he's got a big backyard wood-fired oven, chimney and all, and you could put 2 16-inchers in there at a time. I mean, It's big. But he has this thing that he saves one big piece of dough, and he rolls it out fairly thin, and then just brushes it with melted butter and puts on cinnamon sugar and throws it in until it's bubbly.
Yes.
And that's dessert. That's dessert. A little bit of French vanilla ice cream. Holy smokes! You'd think something that simple, like you've had cinnamon sticks from some commercial pizza, but and they're okay, but they're too much. They feel like too much. This is just enough. It's just the right amount of dessert. It was a revelation. I had never done anything like it before. I do it now myself because it's just a great way to get a little dessert at the end of a meal. I'm a great fond for biscotti as well. I think that's always a great ending to a pizza meal because they're fairly light. And you can a small dollop of ice cream with that and a biscotti or two seems like a good ending to a meal.
Or if you wake up in the middle of the night and just want a little something.
Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the things that I'm working on right now is, I don't know if people know what pizzelles are. A lot of people in St. Louis, I'm sure, do. It's those crisp cookies, usually anise flavored, that are made in like a thin waffle iron. You make it very thin. And they're usually a flat cookie sprinkled with powdered sugar. People make them at Christmas mostly. I discovered that you can make those in a variety of flavors. And when they come off the iron, roll them up around a cannoli tube, and you can fill them with cream.
Oh my gosh.
So it's easier than cannoli, because cannoli have to be fried, and the dough takes longer, and it's a little messier. Those pizzelles, you can make 60 of them in about an hour and a half. So you just roll them up on a cannoli tube. They firm right up. It slides right off, and then you can fill those. I made them at Christmas with gingerbread flavored pizzelle, and then I filled them with cinnamon cream. And they were a revelation, let me tell you. So I'm thinking that's going to be my new go-to dessert for pizza parties. It's going to be thinking ways to use that.
I'm going to go back and write that down and try that. That sounds
yes,
delicious.
And I'm embarrassed to say that's not in the book. I wish I had got that recipe sooner, but I just started doing it this Christmas.
That'll be ready for a third edition then.
That'll be ready for the third edition, yeah. So when I get my pizza podcast, yeah.
Thursday night pizza. It could be any night pizza, but why Thursday night pizza?
Well, in our community, we have a tradition for Thursday nights is the night to have a little card party and have snacks. And so people play Uno it used to be, they had some older members used to play bridge. We don't do that now. But it's just a night when you have a community night. And so I thought, we'll name it after that because that's where I really learned to make pizza. Our father, Ronald, who is Italian and he spent a lot of time in Europe, went to school there. And he started making pizzas for the community, but he didn't like making the dough. So he brought me on board to make the dough. And then the next thing, I'm like making my own sauce from the herb garden. And okay, it's all yours. And I just started creating recipes for the community. That's where I got the idea for that Italian beef pizza that uses the garlic beef, but the bottom layer is smoked mozzarella. I love smoked cheeses. pizza. So either smoke mozzarella over your sauce, and then the garlic beef, and then your lightly sauteed green pepper and onion, and a layer of provolone on the top of that. It's like getting an Italian beef sandwich and pizza at the same time. I served this once at a Super Bowl party, and people stopped watching the game. See, it's like it was no longer important which down it was, because I wanted to get some of this down in my belly. It was quite remarkable. I've also been enjoying experimenting with like hotter kinds of pizzas. Sometimes people ask me, can you make something like really hot? And so I've got a pizza Diavolo that has a little more heat to it, that uses that hot giardiniera that people usually use in Chicago, but you can find it all over. And I use that as the vegetables for it. And then you add a little hot sauce to your regular sauce. And you might use pepper jack cheese. And a lot of times I've served that to people and they say, wow, that is not as hot I thought it was going to be. And it's really good. So that would be a way to experiment with, have put a little heat in things without overdoing it. I've had hot things before. Like I went to some place to get a hot meatball sandwich. And after the first bite, I'm like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to taste besides pain.
Right.
It's just a little too much for me. But yeah, I do experimenting with a little bit of heat on a pizza. Well, that's the thing I like about pizza, because it is so versatile. But your topping is going to be whatever you've got at home, and the flavor profile is whatever you like best. You can go pretty much anywhere with it. I will say, I'm not a person who has ever and will not ever make a taco pizza, because I believe that tacos are perfect just as they are and can be left alone as far as I'm concerned. And I grew up without a real affinity for barbecue sauce. So I'm not in that barbecue chicken camp.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like that a lot. I just don't ever go that direction. But I know people who love it. And I've even advised them on what sauce to use or how to accompany it and so forth. But those are two things that I find just are not a direction I would go. And in case you're wondering if I can come down on one side or the other, if you want to put pineapple in your pizza, go ahead.
I love it.
Well, but
Is that something, Eric? That sounds like you're not all for that at all.
I'm a little cautious, because it's possible my Italian grandfather will rise out of his grave and beat me. But
And
I have to say, really feel that you want to do. But if you're going to do that, please use fresh pineapple. Use fresh pineapple and a slightly higher quality of ham. And then don't use Maz as your cheese. Use something else like Havarti or Manchego, or something that gives it a little more, a little different flavor profile.
Bless you for even trying to do it right. I appreciate it. I'm the only one at the family that tolerates it, I guess. I'm okay with it. It's not my go-to pizza, but I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I've had it. I think I've eaten it once in my life, and it was not bad. I thought it could be improved by fresher pineapple and a different cheese. Right. That's my take on it.
There you go. At the beginning of our conversation, you talked about the word companion, and my question is, how is baking a spiritual experience? Because you talk about that a little bit in an interview that you gave with someone.
Oh, yeah. Because first off, just because there's a nostalgia element to it, there's a certain way it feeds your spirit. But there's a certain aspect of baking that also is outward looking. Like I said, we usually bake bread and share it with somebody. And so there's a sense it's a generous act to bake bread. That's a spiritual thing. Now, from my standpoint, as a Roman Catholic and a Christian, the importance of the bread of life and the Eucharist and so forth just adds a whole nother layer to it. So I'm thinking about the multiplication of the loaves. I'm thinking about the Last Supper when I'm in the kitchen kneading or shaping the dough. I think that's becomes part of it. I'm thinking of a lot of Bible verses that talk about bread. And so that's kind of part of my interior landscape that just comes to my conscious mind when I'm baking. But I think the main reason it seems like a spiritual experience, even apart from a religious experience, the main reason it's a spiritual experience is because it is outward looking, because you make bread to share. You make bread to break bread. And I think that's a really positive thing. And as I said, there's a therapeutic aspect to it in that you slow down and you have to be patient and the dough has to rest And there's a physical aspect to it, to with the kneading, if you knead by hand. And there's an attention to detail that is a good thing that also can get our minds to focus when we're feeling scattered. All of that, it's better than aromatherapy because you can't eat a lighted candle. Right.
You don't want to try either.
Yeah. And when you're done, then when you're done, you have a tangible object that can be admired and shared. Well, yeah, that's a deeply spiritual experience. It's like the way that a person might have a spiritual experience while crocheting a sweater for a loved one, or sewing a garment of some kind. You make a layette set for a baby, that's an act of love. So it's that same thing that you're baking always, I feel, is always outward looking. And therefore, it's a way that nourishes your spirit and somebody else's.
You've embraced this bread making and being a bread monk, and I would even add like a bread head. You're the Jerry Garcia of a deadhead. You're the breadhead guy, and maybe you should get some psychedelic shirts when people come to see you. But you've embraced this in a very humble way. And when you started this, did you think this would end up where it is right now, and where's it going to go?
I wasn't when they first came to me. They said somebody had mentioned my name to the producers in St. Louis at the public television there, and they said, we want to hear more about this monk guy. So they came to watch me teach. They wanted to see, what do you look like live and without a net as a teacher? And so they came, I'm not kidding you, without changing my lesson plan or curriculum, even by a day. They showed up on the day that I did the multiplication of the loaf.
Oh boy.
And so when I teach that class, I talk about different kinds of bread and how they symbolize different kinds of Christian ministry. If you put yourself in the reading, you could be Jesus, or you could be one of the apostles, or somebody in the crowd. But what if you're the bread? What kind of bread are you going to be? I actually wrote this into a book I wrote called Bake and Be Blessed. And what kind of bread you're going to be? You might be garlic bread, which means your faith is so strong it comes off of you like in waves. Or you could be caramel pecan cinnamon rolls, which means you just pour yourself out in generosity. So I'm naming all these different kinds of breads and how they symbolize different ways to be a Christian minister. And they're sitting in the back in the tight desks, writing furiously in their suits. And then literally we went next door to my office after class, and they said, yeah, you got it. We want to give you a TV show. And I'm like, what? Like, okay. I wasn't real sure about it at first, but my abbot thought it was a good thing. He said, we can show people a 21st century monk in a way that you show them what we're really like. You can tell monk stories and get people to understand our life. I thought that's a positive thing. So I really went into it almost not entirely under obedience. I was excited and enthusiastic about it and so forth. But for me, I thought, there's so many cool breads out there, and I was very enthusiastic. And a lot of the people who were involved in public television at that time said, oh, that sounds like a special. That doesn't sound like a whole series. By the time we were in our second season, we had 72% of the American market.
Wow.
In public television. So, because PBS stations can pick which programs they want to watch. There are some that go everywhere, like Antiques Roadshow, that's everywhere. Other programs, these programmers can pick and choose, and we did surprisingly well. Within 2 years, we were really doing well. And I certainly did not expect it to be quite so. I did not expect to be recognized in airports. Let's say that.
Oh, that's great. I could see that Food Network picking you up.
What was really funny too is that when I would do these media tours, I would be recognized in various places, and I had sometimes sitting somebody on a plane or whatever. One time I was in an airport. It was at the end of a media tour. It was a week long. I was so tired. I just did not want to be famous guy on TV. And somebody came up to me and said, aren't you Father Dominic? And I regret, I had to go to confession afterwards. I said, so many people have asked me that, but he must look good with me.
Wow. We're going to come back and hear the rest of that story. He has a great Southern accent there, doesn't he?
Y'all? Yeah, I think.
This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston of St. Louis in Tune. We'll be right back. This is Arnold Stricker of St. Louis in Tune on behalf of the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation. In 1857, the Dred Scott decision was a major legal event and catalyst that contributed to the Civil War. The decision declared that Dred Scott could not be free because he was not a citizen. The 14th Amendment, also called the Dred Scott Amendment, granted citizenship to all born or naturalized here in our country and was intended to overturn the U.S. Supreme Court decision on July 9, 1868. The Dred Scott Heritage Foundation is requesting a commemorative stamp to be issued from the U.S. Postal Service to recognize and remember the heritage of this amendment by issuing a stamp with the likeness of the man Dred Scott. But we need your support and the support of thousands of people who would like to see this happen. To achieve this goal, we ask you to download, sign, and share the one-page petition with others. To find the petition, please go to dredscottlives.org and click on the Dred Scott Petition Drive on the right side of the page. On behalf of the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation, this has been Arnold Stricker of St. Louis in Tune. That's a unbelievable fun time with Father Dominic that we had, Mark.
He's really quite a guy.
He is. And, you know, for being some of the things that he also is, you know, I didn't mention this. You know, we know he's a monk. We know he's an author.
Mhm.
He teaches. He's a writer, but I didn't know this. He's also director. He's drama director, and he's published 2 plays.
Mm.
I didn't know that.
Wow. Quite
You know,
accomplished.
children's book author, you know, the recipient of the 2011 Christopher Award for Children's Books
Man.
and the Catholic Press Association First Place Award for Children's Books. He's also an online baking instructor at blueprint.com.
And he even still does masses on Sundays.
Yeah, he's just a really well-rounded guy, and he's very down to earth. He's not, you know, hoity-toity or stuffy, or, you know, he knows that, hey, everybody's the same, and that's who we are, and he does it. You know, his show is wonderful. His show is just, it was just like you were sitting there, like you knew him for a long, long time.
Right.
But he also encouraged us to call him back around holiday times.
I'm looking forward to it. I really am.
And he was too. I think he had a great time.
And his book, get the book. I mean, it's really a fun book.
Yeah.
to
And
read.
there's more to pizza in there.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
There's
yeah.
sauces in there.
Right.
There's appetizers in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fun book to look through.
It is. It is. So I have our word of the day, which is actually relates to food. And I never heard this before. I don't know. Maybe you've heard this. The word is ort, O-R-T.
Mm-mm.
And it's a small amount of food that's left at the end of a meal. An example would be, they ate ravenously, and when they had finished, the orts would not have been enough to feed a mouse. Have you ever heard of that?
No, never have.
This must be all this old English kind of stuff.
Nope. And they didn't have 2 boys, 2 strapping boys at the dinner table.
Yeah. Do they go through a gallon of milk a day?
Yes. And anything left on my plate, any of my orts.
They all bat clean up for
Oh
orts.
yeah. They were the orts. They were my orts. Like it to be my orts. Orts 1 and orts 2. Good. They do. They eat everything I got. Yep.
Now, you told me before we started the show that you had some very, a really powerful and wonderful kind of day of the day for me today.
Yeah, you know, we always try to celebrate each day with something special and new. So today is one of your favorite days. It's called National Grammar Day. It's imperative that we speak well, write well, and help others to do the same.
Absolutely.
I know. I have problems when I try to help other people, like with their grammar. Do you ever correct
them?
Yes, I do. I hate to say it, I do.
Yeah, some people really don't like that.
I know.
I think what it matters is how it's done. You know, if they say it right away to correct you, it's like, rather than saying, you know, well, you know, I've heard it said that way, but I've also heard it said this way.
Oh, see, you're much more. You could have been a politician,
No,
because I like, please, thank you, may I?
may I? Right? It's
Can I? I can't. It's like, come on,
yeah, may I? Right?
may I? Can I? No,
I don't know. Have you ever?
I know. You're right. My parents were sticklers about it. My mom was an English teacher.
I was going to say,
at
yeah.
Webster College.
Yeah.
When it was the college.
Well, that's where it comes from.
I know. And so she would always like, nah, she'd just jump right in. She did not care.
She didn't sugarcoat it at all.
No, she never would. No. So yeah. So do you correct people? Oh, you said you do, like on
It
Nice.
depends,
on what they're saying,
right.
right?
Sometimes, if it's kids, you want them to speak
Right.
better,
Yes, you do.
correctly.
Uh-huh.
If it's an older person, they're not going to mess with that.
Let's see, what else do we have? A scrapbook industry day. I don't know.
Well, some people are really into scrapping.
Never did that.
No, I didn't either.
Ski day, waltz day. Do you waltz?
I do not.
Ever waltz? Never waltz.
I have waltzed a couple times.
A pound cake day. Do you like pound cake?
I do.
Yeah. Safety day.
Pound cake safety day.
I know. Sportsmanship day. Come on.
Every day
I
should
know,
be
should
sportsmanship day.
Toy soldier day.
Ooh.
And
toy
this
soldier.
is actually the old inauguration day.
Yeah, in March. That's correct.
Uh-huh,
That's
March 4th.
correct.
Yep. The old lame duck. Yep. I've got more, but I'm gonna Mardi Gras. I think is
Mardi
coming,
Gras coming up. Yes.
right? National Marching Band Day.
Oh, love that.
Mhm.
Love that.
I used to have a friend that would hire marching bands for events. You'd be in the middle of the event, and a marching band would bust right in.
And that's the thing in being in band and being a band director. It's like whenever there's something in the community,
Right.
get the band.
Yeah.
It's like we don't have anything else to do. What are we at your beck and call all
Right,
the time?
Yes, they are. I
Oh,
know.
Gosh.
I know.
Okay. So I have a couple funnies here
Okay.
that and this may shock you, Mark, but what if grocery stores closed and we have to hunt for our food? I don't even know where Little Debbie lives.
Oh my goodness.
It's a cold day when your teeth start chattering and they're still on the nightstand.
Does that go with bridges too? I got a bridge. I haven't had mine screwed in yet.
Yeah. To my children, don't make fun of me for asking questions about my cell phone. I once taught you how to use a spoon.
Ooh, boy, that's so true.
Here's a sign that said, "What if I told you you read the top line wrong?" Here we go. Win a free ride in a police car just by shoplifting from this store. Lucky winners can also get their name in the newspaper for their friends and family to see. Won't Mom be so proud of you?
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Let's hear it. Wow.
Having a dog named Shark at the beach was a big mistake.
Oh, no, it's not. I love that. That's a great idea.
Husbands, now this is some advice for husbands. Not really, but husbands, if your wife does something wrong, just explain it to her how your mom did it. She will appreciate your advice and strive to do it as she did.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And yet again, this morning, no one was standing next to my bed saying, "Your Royal Highness, here is your mimosa."
I have a car helper for a driver.
And today I found out that if you treat others how they treat you, they seem to get very upset.
No kidding.
That's really true, isn't it? I had a really good one. I can't find it.
And you will receive some parting gifts from us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. That's
Yep.
Gosh, what's his
Yeah,
name?
right. What's it?
Hands on those buzzers, please, but please don't pop those buttons until an answer is exposed.
Art Fleming.
That's it. Thank you. I knew it would come to you.
No, I was buffering. Not to brag, but I just got hired as a fitness model. And they hired me as the before picture. And lastly, I had the rudest, slowest, and nastiest cashier today.
Mm.
I guess it's my own fault for using the self-checkout lane.
Wow. That'd be about the worst one yet.
Folks, don't forget to check out Father Dom's book. We will post that on the podcast page so you can get that and make some unbelievable kinds of pizzas, appetizers, and sauces. Well, that's all for this hour. We thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can listen to additional shows at stlntune.com. Consider leaving a review on our website, Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue to grow. I want to thank Bob Berthasell for our theme music, our guest, Father Dominic Garamone, and co-host Mark Langston. And we thank you, folks, for being a part of our community of curious minds. St. Louis in Tune is a production of Motif Media Group and the U.S. Radio Network. Remember to keep seeking, keep learning, walk worthy, and let your light shine. For St. Louis in Tune, I'm Arnold Stricker.